I'm Emily Chang, and this is the best of Bloomberg Technology, where we bring you all our top interviews from the week in tech. Coming up, Netflix scorches subscriber forecast with a record second quarter, why content is king as tech earnings get underway. Plus, Uber fit for business. West Coast head Peter Jonas joins us to discuss their Uber for Business platform and rebuilding the company culture without a CEO at the wheel. And the annual meeting of the minds as leaders in tech converge on Colorado to share ideas on cybersecurity, AI, and the future of work. We will bring you highlights from the Fortune Brainstorm Tech Conference. First, to our lead. Netflix's second quarter earnings results exceeded expectations. There was little room for error for the company, which has seen shares climb 30% this year. And the streaming service delivered on its key stat, adding 5.2 million streaming subscribers, with a big portion of that coming from outside the United States. Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde sat down with our editor-at-large, Corey Johnson, to discuss.
When investors look at this stock, they don't see the financial results they need to grow into this valuation. What they see is a business that might someday generate those results. How do you have the free cash flow to pay for all that really cool content on Netflix? By having subscribers who pay you every month and keep on paying you. And so what they see from these numbers is an accumulation of subscribers who are setting their credit card numbers in online, and those payments keep flowing through. And the hope is that we'll see geographies like in the U.S. and like in Canada that are profitable, and that could be the future of the rest of the world for Netflix.
I mean, amazing. 104 million users now, and they say by 2017, for the first time, international users will at last bring them some sort of profit. Corey, I'm looking at the financial analysis use of Bloomberg. If you type FAGO on Netflix,
right,
you can see that at the moment, the revenue breakdown is substantially in the US. You're looking at 2016, I'm seeing 57% of revenue coming from the United States, 36% international streaming. They want to get that to 50-50. Do we have any inkling of when revenue will come into line, internationally speaking, and how they continue to do so well in content?
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm always a pessimist here, right? But when I look at these numbers and I look at how little of the U.S. population Netflix actually has, when it looks like that market is pretty full for them, it suggests to me there meant to be a lot of growth for them internationally. We'll see how the spending patterns are different. They don't give us a lot of country-by-country detail. That might be too much to ask. In fact, somewhat amusingly, they got queried by the SEC about doing business with Sudan, a country that U.S. companies are banned from doing business with, and they pointed out that their revenues are de minimis in Sudan. In fact, as low as $8,000 for the 16 months, so the 15 months that preceded their letter to the SEC. So the $8,000 in Sudan not moving the needle. But I do think it's kind of important, because what it tells us is that not every place is going to run Netflix like they do here in San Francisco or they do there in London, Caroline. But in fact, the different parts of the world are indeed different. It's not just about the way that the internet exists in different countries, but people just aren't going to be able to stream as much in certain places. They're not going to want to stream the Netflix content as much, and it's still a hit-driven business. They've done a pretty good job with some really good shows, whether it's House of Cards, which they license, or Luke Cage, which they own. They've done all right with some of these things, but a lot of their stuff has missed the boat, and that's really tough to do when you're dealing with so many different geographies and so many different cultures.
Yeah, certainly. It seems as though it's been. That's what really helped the second quarter, was an amazing array of content. It was the new episodes coming from House of Cards, from Orange is the New Black. It was really interesting. If you dig into the letter that you're getting from the CEO to investors, they're trying to. He seems as though he's trying to deflect competition here, saying that there is room for everyone. In fact, I think their words are, in fact, they make the internet TV market expand. They're saying, look, HBO has exclusive content, more people are using HBO. We have exclusive content, more people are using us. More people are using YouTube. Is he really right? Why is he trying to downplay this competitive landscape?
Well, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's flat out ridiculous. Look, it is true. It's great for us as viewers. And it's great for us if we're creating content, and you know, we're both of that, Caroline. But it'd be more fun if we were in Hollywood doing that. But it's horrible for Netflix. because the cost of the content is going up. And the number that they don't put on the balance sheet, and I bring this up every quarter, is their long-term cost of content. At the end of last quarter, they had over $15 billion, billion with a B, $15 billion in long-term commitments to content, and that number is going up. How high is it right now? We don't know. They're not going to tell us until they release their quarterly filings. What's really interesting about today's report is they put a separate presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, on their investor relations page explaining the accounting for those long-term, those 10-year commitments in content. But I will tell you, for a business that's getting a $50 million profit every quarter, I'm rounding down, and has $15 billion in long-term content, I'm also rounding that down. It's hard to pay for $15 billion in content when you've got a run rate of profits that's about $100 million. And even if you want to go 10 times that, it's still hard to pay for that. So they're going to have to jack up profits a lot. And so the problem with Hulu and HBO and Showtime and everyone else out there that's raising the cost of content in Amazon Prime is that they're raising it for Netflix when Netflix doesn't have free cash flow to burn. In fact, in this quarter, Netflix lost over $500 million in free cash flow, and that just can't continue forever.
That was Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde and our editor-at-large, Corey Johnson. The Fortune Brainstorm Tech Conference was held in Aspen, Colorado this week. A big topic among the attendees, the state of cybersecurity. As the scale and frequency of major hack attacks continues to rise around the world, I spoke with someone with expert knowledge on the subject, retired four-star general and former director of the NSA, Keith Alexander, who's now at the helm of IronNet Cybersecurity. I started by asking about the boldness of Russia hackers in the U.S. election.
What it points out is not just that it's blatant, but that we're not prepared to defend. You know, so if you left a bag of money on a park bench and then you're surprised that somebody stole it, you know, you'd say, well, secure your money. And where I think that gets us to is secure your network. We shouldn't be pummeled with these. We've got to make these changes in cybersecurity. And it's important to point out that it can't be done by industry itself. It has to be an industry-government partnership. And I think, you know, actually, I think this is an area that the Trump administration has taken on. And I think it's important that government and industry work together for a defensive architecture that can block these kinds of things in the future. So actually, whether they're blatant or not, we shouldn't be faced with them. We shouldn't have people that are losing intellectual property to low-profile hackers and things like we're seeing.
So what's your impression of whether or not the Trump administration is really taking these threats seriously enough?
I think on cybersecurity, I've met twice with the president. Both meetings have been great on cybersecurity. He's asked all the right questions. He's pointed to his administration officials to help. And his comment to industry and to the government, what do you need from me? Exactly what we'd want him to do. So I think he takes it serious. He understands the threat. He's got Tom Bossert as a lead. He's amazing, and Rob Joyce. And I think what they're doing is trying to put this in the right place. So I am optimistic that the government will move forward. I think we in industry, we need that. You know, there's so much you can do as a cybersecurity company, but for sectors in the nation, it takes the government to weigh in. I think we can get there. Think of it as an air defense network over our country. You know, if we had everybody defending each state with their own air defense system or each company with their own air defense system, that wouldn't be a viable defensive infrastructure. And that's what we're trying to do in cybersecurity. So we have to change that.
So we understand you've been advising the administration. What kind of advice are you giving them? What kind of advice have you given to President Trump?
Great advice. It's always been great. Oh, Mike, just along those lines. It's been, we have to work together. I think the interesting part is my experience in the financial sector and in the energy sector. They're willing to pay and do what it takes to get them secure to where they can. Great, across the board. CEOs and CISOs have been great to work with. Their cybersecurity team in industry, in the financial sector, energy sector, are weighing in and I think doing great work. And so the missing link is when they're being attacked, who do you call? You dial 911, there's no answer to stop the attack as it's ongoing. We have incident response, but we don't have a way to block the attack. So now if you jump forward to the election and the elections are being attacked, who do you call? And the answer is it's always after the fact. Well, you need to have a way of defending it at network speed. And that takes industry and government to work together.
So if President Trump is taking this issue seriously, as you say, then why hasn't he publicly acknowledged Russia's hacking of the election?
Well, I think that's a more strategic question. And so that gets back to, what do you want to do with Russia? And how does the administration work with Russia in the future? Do you poke them in the eye, or do you talk to them quietly on the side? And when I think my way through it, the comments that I would do is to say publicly, I'm not going to make this harder than I need to. How do I privately engage Putin and the Russian government to get to the right place? You know, we don't want to create another Cold War, and we don't want a war. So if that's the outcome we want, we have to have some kind of partnership with Russia. Remember, 40 years in the military, Russia was always the adversary. At the same time, we have to be conscious, so it's like that movie where you're looking up at them, right? But you've got to figure out in the Middle East and in other areas, how do we work with and not against them? And so I think every administration, the Obama administration, the Bush administration, and now the Trump administration is trying the same thing. If you remember, the Obama administration went in with a reset button. And so I think we've got to give this administration time to work it out. And what that means is don't poke them in the eye yet.
That said, you've got all the U.S. intelligence agencies saying this happened, and it seems like President Trump is at odds with his own intelligence agencies.
Well, I think really what he's doing is giving himself the ability to deal. And, you know, it comes from, I think, when you're a CEO and you want to have a strategic deal, you let your people do certain sets of things and you leave yourself enough room to negotiate. Now, I don't know specifically on these. I haven't asked on the Russia stuff, so I'm giving you my best thoughts. But my experience in dealing with him on the cybersecurity is he's very thoughtful. I thought he was well-read. He knew all the facts. It wasn't like he was coming up to speed and didn't know it. He had read everything, as you would see a CEO doing it. And I expect on Russia he's doing the same thing. And the question for our country, I think that we've got to ask strategically, is where do we want to be with Russia and China?
That was former director of the NSA and CEO of IronNet Cybersecurity, Keith Alexander. Facebook's WhatsApp messaging service has been partially blocked in China. This coming after the government began cracking down on virtual private networks, or VPNs, which allow users to route data overseas. Authorities have been ramping up social media censorship in China as it prepares for its 19th Communist Party Congress. Coming up, our exclusive interview with billionaire businesswoman and former U.S. Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker on the White House's approach to trade and the future of work. This is Bloomberg. Let's return now to our coverage of the Fortune Brainstorm Tech Conference in Aspen. I sat down with Penny Pritzker, U.S. Commerce Secretary under the Obama administration, and she spoke about the Trump administration's approach to trade as well as the future of work.
First of all, we took transition very seriously and tried to give our successors the benefit of what we had learned over our tenure. And I think what's challenging is, as it relates, for example, to the issue that we're working on here at the Fortune Conference of the Future of Work, is that, I think the future of work requires a focus by not only the private sector but also government to work on workforce training and dealing with the skills mismatch in the short run, but also to deal in the long run with making sure that we're training people for the jobs of the 21st century. But the second role of government is really one if you were thinking about a comprehensive economic plan for the United States, a comprehensive competitiveness plan, is also opportunity. So trade, for example. And one of the things that is challenging is to watch us walk away from multilateral trade agreements and to narrow our focus to either bilateral or smaller trade agreements.
Do you think we're at risk of a trade war?
Well, I wouldn't bet on a trade war as much as I think that the narrowing of our focus and agitating our trading partners is not useful to creating opportunity for Americans and for American business. And so I worry about that. I think that we're, I want us to make progress. That's important for the United States, for us to have good and functional, open, free and fair trade agreements. But we need to get those in place, because the more that we just sort of talk about it and not take action, the more opportunity we're creating for our competitors.
So if trade is one, what are your other big concerns about the Trump administration?
It's not so much the Trump administration. If you think about how do we have a competitive America, we need to deal with trade. We also need to have tax reform so that our companies can be competitive. We need to be investing more in infrastructure than we are, both digital infrastructure as well as physical infrastructure. Frankly, comprehensive immigration reform is both moral responsibility, but it's an economic opportunity that I think we're letting languish right now. So I think creating greater opportunity is one part of comprehensive economic strategy for the country. The other is a social safety net. We need to have a social safety net that acknowledges what 21st century work is like. And we've got 55 million Americans out of 140 million working Americans who are in the gig economy or the on-demand economy. We've got to make sure the social safety net is supporting all Americans. So whether it's health care, we can't just repeal health care and uninsure 20 million Americans. We've got to make sure Americans have access to health care, that they have access to workforce training that will allow them to be successful. In the conference, in the Fortune conference today, we were talking about the fact what Americans want is to know they have stable earning capacity, and they want security in that. And so social safety net's a part of that, opportunity is a part of that, workforce training is a part of that.
Former U.S. Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker there. Well, the British government needs a few more weeks before deciding whether to let Rupert Murdoch's 21st Century Fox take over Sky. This according to Culture Secretary Karen Bradley. She says she may still refer the deal to the Competition and Markets Authority for an investigation of Murdoch's media influence. Coming up, we bring you a sit-down with an Uber executive on the prospects of growth for the embattled startup after a tumultuous few months. Plus, we will have more coverage from Aspen sitting down with the CEO of Priceline, how it plans to fend off the competition and maintain the company's growth. This is Bloomberg. Uber is trying to break into business travel. Our Bloomberg editor-at-large Eric Schatzker caught up with Uber's West Coast head Peter Jonas at the Global Business Travel Association convention in Boston, the world's largest business travel event. And he started by asking about the company's corporate program, Uber for Business, and how it differed from its traditional ride offerings.
Uber for Business is effectively a tech layer, a platform that we put on top of the existing application. And where that came from was in the early days of Uber, we saw a ton of momentum coming from the business traveler community. And as a result, we realized there was a lot of friction for business travelers that we could remove. Uber for Business initially was intended to remove that friction, and we're continuing to extend the reach of Uber for Business outside of that and into other avenues as well.
Okay, so as you're trying to appeal to corporate customers, what services do you feel you need to add, or is this tech layer, as you described it, fully baked already?
So I think of it as, Uber moves people and things, right? In the most fundamental sense. We're putting people in cars, we're putting things in cars. For businesses, this is about your employees. It's about your customers. So moving your customers either to bring them to an event like this or to send them home from the auto dealership when they drop off their car for repair. And then finally, there's the movement of goods. So you want to get goods to customers, pull things from customers. So as we start to build this business out further and this platform out further, we've focused on the low-hanging fruit, which is business travel, where we know the most, because there's so many people already using it, and it's a $250 billion market opportunity globally.
As you know, Uber has been prospecting for growth on a lot of fronts. Food, logistics, freight, self-driving cars, flying cars, for example. How fast does Uber for Business need to be growing to remain a strategic priority?
You know, at Uber, we really focus primarily on the customer experience. Are we solving big enough experiences for our customers? And the answer is yes. The roadmap that we have is going to continue to have us solving more and more interesting problems as we evolve the business.
Do you see growth accelerating?
We see growth accelerating.
Peter, a lot of Uber's success was the product of deals that Emil Michael did, and he was instrumental in the early days of Uber for Business. Now that he's left the company, where does that leave Uber?
So we're set up for success. The work that's been done by the team over the last 5+ years, 6 years, has set us up in many ways, strategically, domestically, internationally, for success. So we're in a really great place.
And what about Travis? How have things changed since he left as CEO?
So it's been a very short period of time. The company is incredibly focused on solving the issues that we have in front of us. We're focused on solving the cultural issues, the leadership aspect we're focused on, and then finally, from a driver perspective, you've probably seen the recent releases around tipping, the wait time pay. All of these sorts of things are our action to start to solve for some of the things that have been exposed over the last few months as issues.
You came in only a few short months ago from Facebook. Given the culture that you knew there, did you see those as deficiencies at Uber when you arrived? And did you see a need for them to be changed in the way that they're being changed now? So I'll tell you this, coming in from Facebook has an amazing culture. Facebook, that is something that's been cultivated over the years. Uber absolutely has all of the nuggets of that you need to build a great culture, and it's just a matter of maturity and the leadership structure, the organizational structure continuing to evolve, which we're heavily focused and invested in now. Here's what outsiders wonder, and perhaps insiders as well. Whether it's Uber for Business, whether it's Uber Eats, whether it's the Uber app that we know that is evolving, how does a company make big and important decisions without a CEO?
I don't know that I'm the right person to answer that question.
But you have to live with the consequences of that situation.
Yeah.
So who's calling the shots for you right now?
So there are a myriad of different people who were already in place when the executive team that left, and they're incredibly competent leaders. They understand the business at great depth, and they've really taken the reins.
Do you think morale is a risk, given the fact that something so many employees are looking forward to, an IPO, is effectively on hold until the management issues are resolved?
We're really focused on resolving any sort of morale issue. I think as we start to really have things like what you saw from the driver rollouts, as we start to put the people and the pieces in place for an evolved culture, I think that's going to be solved.
Coming up, SurveyMonkey CEO joins us to talk about the state of tech in an uncertain political and economic environment. And a reminder that all episodes of Bloomberg Tech are live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV weekdays, 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to the best of Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang. SurveyMonkey is based in Silicon Valley, but has turned into a truly global company, available in 190 countries and boasting 3 million survey responses worldwide per day. Now, it's recently overhauled its user experience, adding a bevy of new services in an effort to lure more paying business users to the platform. SurveyMonkey CEO Xander Lurie joined us to discuss the revamp, plus the company's future.
Tech has a meaningful role. As you look at the tech companies today on the stock market and the amount of financing that tech companies get, the businesses are getting bigger and bigger and becoming more and more relevant. So, for example, with the travel ban the president proposed, that hit us pretty hard as we think about our ability to recruit talent from around the world. And our products are now touching people in countries all over the world, including SurveyMonkey, as you mentioned. So we think it is super important that we have a voice here, that we adhere to our values and stand up for the people that we protect in our employee base and our customers.
You have an interesting perspective on funding because SurveyMonkey has been profitable from the very beginning. Does that make you any more or less interested in all of these goings-on?
Well, we're most interested in how do we grow our business, and we very much believe in profitable, sustainable revenue growth. So what happened this week is we launched our whole new SurveyMonkey platform. We see it as an opportunity to take the voices of the consumers and the employees that you care about and turn that into actionable data. As you know, Emily, we're all swimming in a sea of data. It plays out on social media, people talking about our products and our businesses, and it's those executives who can ask the question why and then use that data to take the actions they need to make their businesses better. And that's where we've been playing for a long time.
You've launched something you call the People-Powered Data Platform,
yes,
and a new mission around curiosity.
Yes.
Explain this.
So we think curiosity is the currency in business today. Our mission is to power the curious. We believe that you need to be serving the constituents, the customers, employees, and shareholders you care about. And so really what our platform does is we've added all this new features and functionality and solutions to help executives turn those voices into actionable data. And we're seeing this play out in politics, you're seeing it play out in businesses, that people have very different voices depending where you are, what gender you are, what income bracket you're in, what education level you're at. And if you care, if you are asking the questions, if you're curious, those are the people who are executing, they're growing, and they're turning Fortune 500 companies from startups in a quicker time frame than ever. And you're covering the arrogant companies that aren't asking the questions, that aren't listening and being responsive to the market, and they're failing faster than ever.
Now, you folks have said SurveyMonkey doesn't need to go public, especially because of the profitability factor. At the same time, we're seeing Snap and Blue Apron and these new tech IPOs struggling in the public markets. Does that give you any pause in terms of if or when to bring SurveyMonkey to market?
It's a good question. As you mentioned, we've been profitable for a long time. We have a financial profile that is positioning us to go public. We have an institutional shareholder base, and I'm very much a steward of our employee capital. So we do need to deliver a return to our shareholders. We've been operating like a public company with debt holders and adhering to quarterly conference calls with our debt holders. We are positioning ourselves to go public if and when the markets are ready for us. We look very different than some of the companies that have had sustainable losses, and I'm really happy with the way our income statement looks.
Okay. So you guys did a really extensive survey about diversity in
yes,
tech for the Fortune Brainstorm Conference, which I just returned from. And one of the key findings was a major difference in the perception of the problem between men in tech and women in tech, where women, 66% of them believe there is still a problem. Only 38% of men do. Are we living in two different realities?
So I applaud your efforts and those of Jessica Lesson and Rachel from the New York Times. Those women, Katie Bennett from the New York Times, those women who are covering the space and the women who are coming out to speak to the issues. We are living in two different worlds, and the voices that matter are the women who feel affected. So I think it is high time that we take a broader view of what's going on. And company executives like me and others have a real responsibility to make sure that we are putting in place the kinds of policies to not only provide a diverse and inclusive workforce, but also to provide for a comforting and belonging workforce once people get there.
Now, we had a very spirited discussion, and at one point, a gentleman in the audience stood up, longtime tech veteran Jonathan Sposato, and he said at the beginning that he knew it was going to be a controversial point, but he suggested that perhaps women need to support each other more. The CEO of OpenTable, Krista Quarles, stood up, and she was, very emotional and had this to say in response.
In Silicon Valley today, there's a sisterhood of women who are supporting each other, telling each other about board opportunities, giving each other business ideas. There's a sisterhood.
We could have talked for hours, so many differing opinions and viewpoints about the state of the problem, what the problem even is. You guys actually broke down a lot of the numbers. What was the most interesting thing that you found?
Well, I think you highlighted it, and it's exacerbated in technology, that when you look at the percentage of women in leadership roles, the percentage of women on board of directors, and it's not just women. You know, we have employee resource groups for African Americans, Latinos, the LGBTQ community at SurveyMonkey. So we think that these groups that are underrepresented in leadership, it has a real impact not only on the products you create and deliver, but how you market them. And so I think executives need to be pushing harder on recruiting, on the employee policies, on the training and mentorship. Parental leave is something that's very important to us. We recently provided men 16 weeks in addition to women, and really it's making sure that women have a support system at home and are not necessarily the ones who are deemed to be the one who have to plan for that early childhood.
SurveyMonkey CEO Xander Lurie there. Well, there's a mass exodus happening at Hampton Creek. The entire board of the food startup has reportedly abandoned ship. This according to people familiar with the matter who say the only board member left is CEO Josh Tetrick. At least 5 directors have quit over the past month. Others were either fired or have walked out since April. The news comes after a string of controversies last year, including a Bloomberg report showing Hampton Creek quietly bought back its own products from supermarkets. Coming up, we will hear from the CEO of Priceline, how it plans to fend off the competition and maintain the company's growth. Plus, it is the network that brought you hits like Mad Men and Breaking Bad, how AMC is competing with the likes of Netflix and Amazon next. This is Bloomberg. Priceline CEO Glenn Fogel took the reins of the internet travel giant in January. Since then, the company's shares have risen over more than 30%, cementing its standing as one of the world's largest travel platforms. I caught up with Fogel for an exclusive interview at the Fortune Brainstorm Conference in Aspen and asked about the company's strategy to keep Priceline in the lead.
Well, I think we're going to keep doing what we've done in the past. The strategy doesn't change, which is providing a great service for two sides of the market. That's the traveler and the supplier, be it a hotel, be it a car rental, open takeaway restaurants. The idea always is use our technological skills, use what we are able to better than the supplier, is use technology to provide a better service for those customers.
The EU just slapped Google with a massive fine based on favoring their own products in search results. Does the EU need to take a closer look at how Google handles travel?
Well, I think one thing that I've read a little bit in the news about that, but it doesn't say exactly what Google will have to change in their practices. So until we see what that change is, we can't really comment on that. Look, Google's been a great partner for us, and we've done a lot of good work with them in the past, and we hope to continue to have a great combination in the future.
Is there an opportunity for Priceline or Expedia to benefit here, though? Because the market certainly thinks so.
You know, again, because we don't know what those changes in the way Google operates, how they're going to be. The fact is that when Google's had to make changes in the past, or when they wanted to on their own, those have been advantageous to us because we've been able to adopt quickly. Technology people that we have are able to take advantage of these changes. It's a little bit of keeping up as things change, being on a wingman to the pilot up in front, turn quickly and be able to get those new things out very rapidly. That's one of the benefits of scale, is we can afford all these people to be able to do there to work on things. If you're a small player, you don't have that many people, you don't have the luxury having those people around to do that kind of thing and make sure it's an advantage for you.
Meantime, the hotel industry is mounting a campaign claiming that Priceline and Expedia are monopolistic. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, let's be careful here. That's their lobbying group saying that, and I've read some very nice things from some of the CEOs, some of the companies saying, yeah, I'm not really sure exactly where that came from or what that was. That's one. Two, I'd like to make the point that right now, we only book a single-digit percentage of the total number of hotel rooms and properties, home, apartments that are on our system. Single-digit percentage of that total inventory. That's a very small number. I think that says that I have to disagree with people who are saying that we have some sort of large market share. I think they should look at the statistics.
Airbnb is now looking to expand into travel booking. How worried are you about Airbnb as a competitor?
Well, I'm concerned about all my competitors. I want to make sure that we're always on the cutting edge of coming up with new things and making sure that we can do things a better way. And look, we came from behind when we started out. We were small. And in Europe, our biggest customer, biggest subsidiary, Booking.com, nobody had ever heard of it. So we're used to coming out undercutting bigger people. So I am aware of people much smaller than us who are coming up quickly and looking, watching, what are they doing? That's why we're spending so much time, energy, and money on building out our own home, apartments, and villa product. We're really building that out. We have over 700,000 properties like that on our system. Now, it's not as aware, people aren't as aware in America about this, but we're going to actively make that happen because I believe that being able to see both that type of home, apartment, villa, and hotels in the same search. Look, I'm going off to Iceland with my family next month. And when I looked, I wasn't sure what I want. I got 4 people to deal with. Do we want an apartment or do we want a hotel? On the Booking.com site, I saw it all right there. And it was all instantly bookable. You know, a lot of these other people who do this kind of home, villa, apartment stuff, it's not instantly bookable. 100% of our stuff is instantly bookable. So when I press, I'm done, I'm done. Unlike, okay, now when message goes off, maybe they'll come back in 48 hours, come back 48 hours, I can't rent it to you. That's annoying. That's friction. Our goal is to get rid of that friction.
So when you say you're going to actively make that happen, actively make that more visible,
we're doing
what does
it right
that mean?
Now. What does it mean? Is right now we have people out there getting more inventory. 700,000, over 700,000 properties. We want to have a lot more. We want them everywhere, every type. What does that mean? It means making sure, and some type of marketing, I'm not going to say what it is or how it is, but I want people like you, when you think I need a condo to do some skiing, maybe in Aspen, or maybe I need a place on the beach, when you think, I want you to think Booking.com. That's what I want.
All right. You still own part of the Chinese online travel giant Ctrip. They've made it clear they want to expand internationally. Does that mean more competition for you?
We believe that our partnership with Ctrip is very beneficial to both of us. And I've had a great relationship with the senior management there for over 12 years. So a dozen years. And I've been talking and working with them and everything. And our investment didn't come until I had gotten to know them for a very long time. And we think that there's a lot of room for everybody in this marketplace. And I think anybody, and you were in China for some time, so you have a pretty good understanding of the Chinese market. You know, there are a lot of people who are they're cooperative and they're competitive. And so I have no problem with this at all. And I think we'll hopefully keep our relationship going for a very long time.
So you plan to hold on to the stake, increase it?
One thing I
Sounds like you're not planning to sell it.
Well, but one thing I'm very careful to say is I never try and make predictions about what we're going to do in the future. That's not very healthy. But I will say we're very happy with our relationship.
And there's been no shortage of tech companies focusing on food, as we know, from Blue Apron's recent IPO and Amazon's bid to buy Whole Foods. I spoke with OpenTable CEO Krista Quarles about how the company's strategy for growth as competition heats up is shaping up.
There's 2 huge growth opportunities for us as we see them. One is to be a much more global company. We're part of the largest travel company in the world now, and yet we're better known in English-speaking parts of the world. And so the idea that we could become your global dining passport, where no matter what city you wake up in, Berlin, Dubai, Tokyo, that you could have a set of curated experiences that then you could go book is a huge opportunity for us. And the second big opportunity is really around having OpenTable stand for more than just fine dining, occasion-based experiences. I think we want to be known for everyday dining. You know, when you look at the frequency of our user, we know that they're going out to eat. You know, it's 2015 that spending on dining outside the home surpassed spending on dining inside the home. And we believe that we can be part of that more frequent education. So what does that mean for us? That means having more restaurants that are more casual in nature. It means rethinking what the reservation actually is. So if you look at our mobile app, within 90 minutes of seating time, 25% of our reservations are coming in that way. That's not a reservation anymore. That's a kind of a homing beacon for what's available around me right now. That's not a reservation. So thinking about the type of booking, or how do we connect a restaurant and a diner together, and so really being part of that everyday dining opportunity.
Yelp is getting into reservations. There's startups like Reserve. Airbnb is moving into experiences. What's your answer to that?
First of all, restaurants are a small, medium business category, and they are in many ways a linearly scaling model. It's, person times quota equals restaurant growth, and we've been at it almost 20 years. And so just the enormity of that scale is hard to replicate quickly. A lot of our competitors have, 1,000, some of them only have 200 restaurants. And so if I'm a diner who's looking for choice, that doesn't necessarily spell choice.
You have very long-standing relationships with restaurants. Would you ever get into something like delivery? And this is a very hot area, and I know all of these businesses do slightly different things, but, there's just some sort of opportunity there. Just wonder how to execute it.
I think, and execution is the key here. I think that the logistics of delivery is incredibly challenging, and we're not going to play in that game. However, when I think about us being, in some ways, the operating system for a restaurant, to the extent that we can help them make sense of all the different delivery options, to the extent that we can help flow into how the kitchen works, then I think that OpenTable could play a part.
Japanese billionaire Masayoshi Son is betting on indoor farming. His SoftBank Vision Fund is leading a $200 million investment in the Silicon Valley company Plenty. The San Francisco startup claims to have a super efficient method of growing indoor crops. Other participants include investment funds for Alphabet's Eric Schmidt and Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Coming up, more highlights from the Fortune Brainstorm Tech Conference in Aspen. Instagram COO joins us to discuss the platform's current ad strategy and the success of its Stories feature. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio. You can now listen on the Bloomberg Radio app, Bloomberg.com, and in the U.S. on SiriusXM. This is Bloomberg. Amazon wants you to keep spending, so much so that it's launched Amazon Spark, a new feature inspired by the likes of Instagram and its use of shoppable photos. Amazon users are able to post stories, ideas, and images of popular products. The goal is to have product inspiration translate into purchases with the click of a button. Amazon Spark is currently only available on the company's mobile app. Meantime, Instagram, one mobile platform that has been dominating the digital ad space. We sat down with Chief Operating Officer Marnie Levine and discussed how the platform is working with advertisers to reach its 700 million users.
1 in 5 mobile minutes is spent on both Facebook and Instagram combined. There are 2 billion people using Facebook, and there are 700 million, as you said, using Instagram. So businesses really need to be on both. But what's interesting about the Instagram community is this, and that is that people in the community really want to hear from businesses. About half of our community, or 80% of our community, nearly half of our community connects with the business voluntarily. So they want to hear from businesses. So what we've been really focused on is helping businesses big and small advertise on Instagram, advertise in Feed, and now in Instagram Stories. We just started advertising there, and helping businesses develop their presence and connect with new customers, but also connect more deeply with existing customers, and we're seeing that businesses are finding great success on Instagram.
So how would you rate the success of Instagram Stories so far?
I think it's been great. If you think back, a year ago at this time, Instagram Stories did not exist, and now there are 250 million people using it every day. So they are not just sharing their highlights, but they're also sharing all of their moments and telling their full story. That can come from businesses too. In fact, of the most watched stories on Instagram Stories, a third come from businesses. And so what that shows is that people want to hear from businesses in Feed, but also in Instagram Stories.
Now, Instagram may be the one Facebook platform where e-commerce actually works. And I know you guys are doing some experimentation there. You've got partnerships with J.Crew and Coach and Club Monaco. How is the progress there so far?
It's been interesting. We've started out and had some pilots. People come to Instagram, as I said, because they want to connect with businesses. They want to connect with their friends and family. Sometimes when people are coming, they want inspiration. Sometimes they want to be able to act. They see a great pair of shoes and they want to be able to buy those shoes. But when it comes to shopping, there's a journey in between, and I think that Instagram can play a great role in terms of helping to develop this.
That was Marnie Levine, COO of Instagram. And finally, it is the network that brings you The Walking Dead and Better Call Saul. AMC has had one hit show after another since its first original show, Mad Men, premiered 10 years ago. But it doesn't come easy. I sat down with AMC President Charlie Collier at the Fortune Brainstorm Tech Conference in Aspen and asked how the network competes with streaming services like Netflix and Amazon. Take a listen.
Talent is at the core of our business. It is without question where we all try to pay the most attention. And so they've changed the business because, frankly, the greatest talent is a finite supply, and we all go for it. So when I have someone like Vince Gilligan, who came to us with Breaking Bad, and now he's here with Better Call Saul, we all nurture those relationships, and we all look for the Matthew Weiners, the Vince Gilligans, the Robert Kirkmans. I mean, it's those are the people that fuel our success.
Can you spend as much as they can on a new show or a pilot?
Oh, sure. You know, I mean, what we want to do is spend the right amount. You know, it's not about spending as much as them, but we want to spend the right amount to hit the creative vision. So we look at it and you think The Walking Dead is in the right place and doing the right things. And Mad Men was transformational, and all that happened on AMC, which is great.
So what is the programming budget?
Well, we don't release individual programming budgets, but what
is it billions? I mean, Netflix has billions.
Well, you know, sometimes more is just more. More isn't necessarily better. You know, we talk a lot about doing fewer better. We talk a lot about finding a way to serve the underserved, passionate audience. And if you look, we have a show like Preacher, which we're doing with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. And the risk that is, the creative risk, is as pure as the risk was for Mad Men or Breaking Bad. And that they brought it here and that we nurture it together, that's the best. That has nothing to do with money. That has a lot more to do with their talent.
When it comes to cord cutting and cord shaving, how do you convince pay TV operators to take on a smaller network like a Sundance?
Well, you know, a lot of it is about what I said, is understanding a unique, passionate core audience. What AMC Networks globally has done, we're not 25 channels coming to them and just saying, carry us. We really are 5 specific businesses with 5 target audiences, and we know who we want to be. So have you been to the Sundance Film Festival?
I have not.
Okay.
I would love to.
Well, the core of the Sundance Film Festival, and it was born out of Robert Redford's vision. He was in our offices last week, and we're still talking about who we want to be, and that's a unique audience and a unique network for the cable operators. So the answer is provide value.
So what do you see as the future of skinny bundles?
Sure, well,
and how it changes the industry, really?
Well, you know, it's interesting. To the consumer, skinny bundle doesn't mean a lot at all. We talk about making sure the fan has from us what they want when they want it. And we've been successful. You know, we're on Sling and YouTube TV, and it's just another way to distribute to the fan where they're going to be. I think what's great about the way we've transitioned our business, we've sort of been disrupting from the inside for a while. You know, not based on skinny bundles or even some of the competitors you talked about, but more based on the desire to serve the fan and really know the fan better.
Would you ever go direct to consumer?
Well, we just launched AMC Premiere, which is a commercial-free version of AMC, and it's an option for people within the ecosystem. And the strategy behind that was to offer more choices. We do know our fan better than ever before, and one thing they say is, you know, just give me an opportunity to do what I want. And we've been on EST, for example, you know, Apple Electronic Sell-Through, for years the day after commercial-free, and now we've got AMC Premiere, and we could develop to that, and one day, who knows?
So how's it going so far?
It's great. It's been a soft launch, and yet it's been a momentum creator, and those two things together I feel very good about.
Last question.
Sure.
How do you find your next big hit? How do you figure out what's going to strike at the heart of what people want to watch?
Well, we talked for a minute, and the truth is, and this is not my quote, but nobody knows anything. If anyone knew, they'd just make hits. And so to take the odds and put them in your favor, the best way to do it is bet on talent, bet on great talent, and give them a place to take creative risks and then nurture those risks.
And that does it for this edition of the Best of Bloomberg Technology. We will bring you all the latest in tech throughout the week. Tune in each day, 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. And remember, all episodes of Bloomberg Technology are now live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV weekdays. That's all for now. This is Bloomberg.